you're from the East Coast.
From Massachusetts.
Nice. Did you go? What was it like growing up there?
I grew up in south of Boston, about 25 miles south of Boston.
Is it
So
Southie?
No, I didn't grow up. Southie's in the actual heart of the city. No, I grew up in a town called Whitman, Mass. Whitman, Mass is famous for probably one thing. It's the Toll House chocolate chip cookie. My first job was a busboy at the Toll House restaurant, and that's where they invented the Toll House cookie.
No way.
And I think I just went in for my interview, and I got my shifts, and I think I did one night, and the next night the place burned down.
Because of you.
That's what I was.
It was all because of you.
It was all my fault. The Toll House cookie burnt down. You would think the place would have smelled like burnt cookies everywhere, but yeah. So no, I grew up south of Boston and spent some time in my early 20s out in LA. Lived out there for a while. Struggled as an actor, and then kind of worked my way back to the East Coast. And I've been kind of living in Massachusetts ever since. So
Did you have siblings?
I do, yeah.
Brothers.
I have two sisters.
And you're a fighter? Wow.
Yeah. So I have two sisters. We were all adopted. So I was adopted at like 6 weeks old. My parents adopted myself and my two sisters from Catholic Charities. You know, so I have an older sister who's I'm going to be 56, so she's like 62, and then I have another sister who's 4 years younger than her. And you know, the funny thing is, my parents adopted my older sister Mary from Catholic Charities. 2 years later, Catholic Charities called and asked if they'd be interested in adopting another little girl who came from the same exact biological parents. You know, so their biological mother had an affair with the same dude twice, and she put both these girls up for adoption. Oh. And so my parents were like, shit, yeah, we'll take both of them. So my actual two older sisters were real siblings within our adopted family. And then, you know, 4 years later, they wanted to adopt a boy, so they adopted me. Fast forward 25, 30 years later, me owning a private detective agency, my sisters wanted me to locate their biological mother. So I was able to hunt her down and find her and reunite them together. Which is, you know, and they still kind of have a relationship to this day. And I had done the same thing with my own biological mother when I was 25 years old. I kind of took it on like a case, and I went to the court, petitioned the court, went and got, you know, limited records, unsealed, and then was able to track her down and locate her myself, you know. So it was, it was pretty cool.
That's wild.
I know. So yeah, I got two great sisters, grew up in a great family. Never really had any stigma, you know, being adopted. It was just always something that was known in my family, and something I thought was pretty cool that, you know, two people could, you know, adopt three kids, raise them, love them like their own. You know, so pretty good shit.
What was the feeling like? When did you find out you were adopted? Because you were adopted right away.
Never found out. Just was raised that way.
Right, but you were adopted as a baby?
Yeah. Right,
so you don't know you're adopted. But when did you find out that your parents that are raising you are not your real blood parents?
I mean, I didn't. I just, they pretty much, I think, actually I have a book that I still hang on to this day, 55 years later, that I think it was like a custom-made book. And it talks about, you know, this giraffe that was adopted. It was a children's book, but it was actually based on me. So my parents had that book made, you know, and published. And, you know, so I always knew. So I think they talked to me as an infant, as a toddler. So it was just something that we always knew. My sisters and myself, we just always knew we were adopted. It wasn't one of those days where they came to me and said, or I said, you know, Jesus, you know, you know, we don't really look alike, or whatever. But the funny thing is, we kind of do look alike, because it's like, you know, how owners kind of grow to look like their dogs.
Of course,
you know? So I actually had a good match, because when I was put up for adoption, my biological mother wanted me going to an Italian family. Yeah. You know, so I was placed within an Italian family, which is my heritage. Yeah. And so no, I never, there was never that bombshell moment where I was able, you know, where I said, oh shit, I'm adopted. It was just known.
Yeah, so they were black with blonde hair. No, I'm just talking.
Yeah, right. No, you know what's funny is my name at birth was Jason Lentini.
Oh, nice.
So when I got my records unsealed, I saw what my name was at birth. So it was Jason Lentini was a name that I had up until the time I was adopted, and then I was changed to Mark Chauppetta.
We're going to call him Mark.
It's called me, yeah, right.
Marcus.
Yeah, I think Jason Lentini. I kind of sometimes I'll use that name as an alias when I'm undercover or if I'm working on certain cases.
Yeah,
it's kind of a fun name to have. But yeah, I had a great upbringing, great parents, great Irish, Italian, household, suburban America, Mom stayed at home with us. Dad managed a grocery store. Just normal shit.
Were you into drugs and alcohol at all in like high school and stuff?
Experimented, but never really took to it, super crazy. I always kind of had that self-control. I wanted to kind of stop myself, but I did explore a little bit with alcohol.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Like my youngest son now is at Syracuse University, and he's turning 19, and it's a party school, and kind of giving him those fatherly lectures, like just, I know you're going to drink, I know you're going to experiment, but just try to stay in control, try to stay in control of yourself, and, especially if you're going to be getting involved with women, what do young boys and young girls want to do when they're in college, They want to try to hook up. And I go, if you're going to end up hooking up, just make sure that alcohol isn't a factor in it, because consent goes out the window. And as an investigator and as a criminal investigator, I see these cases all the time, where you may think it's consensual at that time, but then the next day, someone wakes up and they may regret what happened, and they say something to someone, and someone says something to someone, and it gets off to the, someone within the school hierarchy, and next thing you know, you're getting cuffed and stuffed. So it's, it's this weird thing. You have a little girl?
I do. I have a 5-year-old daughter.
All right. So, it's a great age. Like when my son Max got his license, he'll be 19 so when this airs and drops, he'll have already turned 19 years old. For that time up until he got his license at 16 and a half and he got a car, as a parent, you can sit there and they have no choice but to sit there and just fucking listen to everything you say. Even if they're on their cell phone or they're not even paying attention, you hope that they retain like 1 or 2% of that when life comes later and you come to that crossroad and there's a decision that needs to be made. Hopefully some of that conversation within that car, stuck.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty hardcore parent. I like to have a lot of teaching moments with my kids, and I'm hoping that, some of the lessons and the things I've told him pay off.
Are resonating with him.
Yeah, because college is scary. It's like I have a 31-year-old daughter. She's married, and she's a great kid. And then I have twin sons that are 29 that have muscular dystrophy, and, they're in wheelchairs, and it's a pretty serious terminal disease, but they're warriors. They live independently. They're kicking the disease ass. It's called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So I've always had control of them, and I kind of run their life, and I dictate what goes on within reason. They are young men now. They're 29 years old. But Max, my youngest, he's the first that's, my daughter was easy. Girls, they say, can be difficult. And you'll realize that, when your daughter gets older. My daughter was easy. My twins are disabled. I was in control of them. My youngest son, he's a free spirit. He's in film school, and he's a little bit more indoctrinated than like some kids are in today's world. So losing that control scares me, but hoping those lessons and those times we've traveled together when, all those years he was in the car with me and I'm driving him to school and picking him up or driving him here and there. Hopefully, that's all you can hope for as a parent, that they remember this and they listen and, because there's shit that comes to my head now. And my parents are both deceased, and there's certain lessons that I'll think back on, like, oh, that's why, that was happening. Or, you know.
At 19, I was a complete wild child.
Yeah.
I was getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I was doing every drug under the sun. I was drinking all the time.
Right.
I was hooking up with as many girls as I could, just living like a madman.
Right.
And
how old are you now?
I'm 39.
All right.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
Right.
But look, now I'm sober. I got all these things.
But you did this so you can share your your experiences with your daughter.
Absolutely. Now,
at least that's how we justify it.
100%. No,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And for me, one of the hardest things to do, and it's only going to get bigger from here, but with my 5-year-old, she learns by a lot of her own experiences.
Right.
Like, I can sit there and say things. Yeah. So my question for you is, how does it feel to be powerless over your 19-year-old? Like, you could give him the information, you could give him the knowledge, but he's really only going to learn through his own experiences.
Yeah, it's been an adjustment for me. It's been scary. My 31-year-old daughter, that was so long ago, and she was never a problem. And I remember once, being in law enforcement in some capacity as a licensed private eye, and having a lot of connections within local law enforcement and police and whatnot. In the city that we were living at the time, Brockton, Massachusetts, which is known for, if you're a fighter, those two famous fighters came out of Brockton, Rocky Marciano and Marvin Hagler. She was out one night with her girlfriends when she was a teenager, and she was driving a vehicle that was registered to me. It was her first car. And one of my cop friends was doing patrol, just kind of roving through the city at night, running plates for warrants, just to see, just fishing.
Yeah.
And he texts me, and he's like, hey, Mark, I just ran a plate. It's your vehicle. It looks like it's your daughter and a bunch of kids in the car, and she's in kind of a bad part of the city. Everything cool? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. I trust her, And so I made the mistake, and I said something to my daughter. She's like, were you having me followed? Ooh. I go, no, honey. I go, this guy, I know people. And she's like, Dad. I go, what are you doing in that part of town? That's a pretty shady part of town. It's like, Dad, not everyone can live in the suburbs in a nice house. And, I happen to have some girlfriends that, that live in 3 families. And I was dropping her off. And she kind of put me in my place.
Yeah.
And she's never been a problem. And she's married and she's established. And, then my twins, well, they're disabled. So I kind of have a control over them in a way. But Max, the youngest, to answer your question, no, it scares the shit out of me. You just try to, out of sight, out of mind sometimes. But, I texted him yesterday, and I'm like, be careful. It's Halloween. Whatever you're doing tonight, be smart, stay in control. I know you're going to experiment with alcohol, but it never feels good the next day when you wake up. And you also have, there were 2 lectures I gave him when he went. Now, I tend to swing a little bit. I'm kind of independent, but I tend to swing a little bit towards the right politically, or where a lot of law enforcement people tend to do. And, and he's 18 turning 19, and he's a little bit more, has more liberal, ideology. So I always try to tell him, just never read the headlines. Always read both sides. Always try to draw your own conclusions when it comes to any subject in life. Just don't read a headline and just run with that. If it's something that, you're interested in, just you figure it out on your own. When I dropped him off at college, I'm like, look, I go, and this was like when protests, there was all these protests going on up at colleges. I go, look, just don't get yourself involved in any protests. And he's like, well, Dad, it's our right to protest, And I go, look, I'm paying $90,000 a year for you to go to college. Well, he's got scholarship money, but at the end of the day, I'm paying $45,000 a year for you to go to college. I go, if I find out you're protesting, you're going to be going to fucking community college quicker than I can fucking rip a fart. All right? I go, that was the first bit of advice, and the second bit of advice is what I just mentioned about if you're gonna want to get laid, make sure
no alcohol,
or make sure you're in a relationship, because you just can't hook up nowadays like you used to be able to 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago in my case, because you have to have that consent. So and he's a film major. And I go, if you believe in, and I'm not trying to suppress your right to have an opinion or something's going on up there and it's a hot topic subject or a political issue. I go, you're a film major. Make a fucking movie about it. Don't disrupt someone else. So far he hasn't done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not that he was going to anyways, but it makes you feel better as a parent.
For sure.
You know, so yeah, parenting is, it's probably what I'm best at in life.
Parenting?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would say, yeah. Marriages, you know, I've had my ups and downs. Parenting, I think I'm like fucking Hall of Fame parent.
How many marriages?
I'm on marriage number 3.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I've heard more. I've heard 5.
Have
I think.
you?
Yeah, on my show, I've had someone
Really?
who was married 5
I bet
times.
you haven't heard this one yet, though.
What?
My second wife was my attorney who divorced me to my first wife.
So you
married my divorce attorney.
Okay, so you get divorced,
Yeah.
your first marriage.
Yeah.
She is your attorney. And then you guys hit it off from there.
Hooked up and married her, yeah.
How long
No, I mean,
from divorce to second marriage?
a number of years, but
Okay.
I wish it was like a week. It would sound sexier for the show, but we stayed friends and eventually ended up getting.
Hey, it happens. You meet people along the way and you just hit it off.
And we're still friends and we're still colleagues because she's a divorce attorney.
Yeah.
And she did our divorce for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
you
I
got-
knew I probably wasn't going to make it through the second marriage. So no, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Just cut some money a little
Yeah.
bit. But
No,
did she give you a discount on the first one?
She did our on the first marriage divorce. I don't think
She had
so.
an eye for you. She gave you the old discount.
I guess so many years ago. You know, I think in total. So I got my 10-year wedding anniversary coming up to Janice, who's awesome, my current wife. So 10 years is a pretty good.
I saw on Instagram you have a beautiful wife.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful family.
Pretty good stretch for me is 10 years. So I think total, I might be hitting like 20 total.
Wow.
Maybe like 18.
Mark, maybe she's the one.
I
10
think
years?
I think she is the one, yeah.
Wow.
I know. When we hooked up, I didn't say fucking hooked up, but
When you guys linked up and you start,
I met her on, believe it or not, we met on Plenty of Fish,
Whoa.
which is like a ghetto, like,
dating app.
dating app, yeah.
Now it's the graveyard, but back
Is it?
then,
Yeah.
I mean, go 10, 12 years ago,
Yeah.
it was like one of the first ones.
And I was
Match.
and I was one of the only guys that didn't send her a dick pic
Yeah.
or like a shirtless picture.
Yeah.
So she answered me.
Women tend to
And
like
that
when
was-
you don't send them
Yeah, right.
the pics, the banana picture.
Yeah,
you know?
right. So I didn't do that. We met on, and in today's world, it's so easy to kind of do your own social media.
Yeah.
And I have such a social media profile
Mm-hmm.
that she just looked me up on Facebook and saw that we had like, over 100 mutual friends.
Oh, wow.
And we grew up in the same fucking town.
Wow.
And,
Was she just a different year? Or?
She's 8 years younger than me.
Oh, nice.
So when I was cruising the town with my buddies, when I was 18, she was 10.
Yeah, she was she was in like 3rd grade.
I always tease her. I go, I was cruising through the center of town with my buddy Frank, and we saw these 2 girls coming out of the store, this little one with pigtails on her bike, and I looked at Frank and I said, someday that's going to be my fucking 3rd wife. It's like, what are you, a pervert? No.
That's actually really funny. All right, so you wrestled in high school.
I did, yeah.
And you fought professionally.
I did, yeah.
For a bit. How did
Yeah.
you get into professional fighting, and how did that evolve?
Yeah, I mean, I've just had a tendency to roll around with sweaty guys for whatever reason.
You've been
So-
doing that since you were young.
Yeah. And Janice, my current wife, she doesn't understand that wrestling culture. It took her a few years to understand
Yeah.
why I'm walking out of the house in spandex and I'm going to roll around with guys.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a weird dynamic. But no, I wrestled in high school, and I didn't excel in wrestling, but it was just something that I fell in love with. I think as a kid, I was that Hulk Hogan fan or whatever, thinking that's what wrestling was. And then I joined their actual wrestling team, and I still have friendships to this day. I've been out of high school 38 years, and I still have friendships to this day with all the guys that I wrestled with.
Yeah, that camaraderie.
It's fucking bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I did that for 4 years, and I didn't go to college to where I went to college. They didn't have wrestling, so I didn't pursue it. And then fast forward to 30 years old, I think it was. I had a radio show locally in Massachusetts. So I had an AM radio show 2 days a week. It was called the On the Mark Show, and it was pretty cool. It was a fun show. It was kind of a shock jock type show, and I had a cage fighting promoter come in, and we're talking, UFC, and in the indie fighting circuit was just kind of starting. Oh, actually, you know what? Back up. So I can't remember my whole fucking life. All right. So when I was 29, prior to that, I was dating this chick who was a lot younger than me. It was in between one of my, I think, divorce, marriage 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And she challenged me to fight. She's like, we were talking fighting, and she's like, you're too nice of a guy, or you'd never do something like that. I'm like, fucking sign me up.
She wanted to fight you one-on-one.
No, she didn't think I would get into the. She didn't think I could do that. Actually,
Okay.
I think we were all together with a bunch of friends, and we're talking about cage fighting. UFC was starting to become popular.
Yep.
This is like 1998.
Okay.
And she's like, you'd never do that. So next thing you know, with a buddy of mine, we went and joined a local school, and started training. Mm-hmm. And I only had wrestling and striking. I had no jiu-jitsu, nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, I'll take a Valley Tudo fight. So so I turned 30, and I took my first bare knuckle fight. And,
you went into bare knuckle
it was
fighting?
It was called Valley Tudo. So it was heel palm. So you strike like that. And it was in a warehouse down in Rhode Island, and they matched different disciplines up back then. This is like 2000, so 24, 25 years ago. Mm. And I was supposed to fight a boxer, and I was a wrestler. I'm like, all right, perfect.
That's easy.
It's easy, right. Yeah. He gets fucking hurt like a week before the fight, and I'm like, I still want to do this. Like, well, we got this other kid. His name's Gunnar Olsen. He's 19. He just came off Norwich University wrestling team. I'm like, fuck, that's me 10 years younger, even better version than me.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck it, I'll fight him. So we're down in like Pawtucket in a warehouse. I'm on the same car. I'm sitting in the locker room with Tim Sylvia, who ends up becoming the UFC heavyweight champion.
Yeah, of course.
Jorge Rivera was in the. I think Jorge Rivera might have fought Tim Sylvia that night. He was a UFC veteran. And I fought an 8-minute fucking bloody. Fucking no rounds, just 8 straight minutes.
8 straight?
Yeah.
That's a long time.
And he was 19 and I was 30, and I was considered ancient at 30. Now I look back, I'm 55 years old, and 30 was a baby, but at the time, in the fighting world, so I did that. It was for this guy, Kip Collar. I don't know if you know who Kip is. A lot of people know him. He owns NAGA. The North American Grappling Association, which is blown up. They're worldwide now. Mm-hmm. So he was promoting that, and he was like impressed with like my grit, and he wanted me to continue fighting, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm done. It was 1 and out. I ended up breaking up with that girl anyways. Yeah. Fast forward 5 years later, I'm on my radio show. Haven't done anything. I kind of got a little chubby and fat. I had a promoter come on, and he's like, knows that I have sick kids and I raise money for charity, and he's like, I'll give you $5,000 if you jump back in there and train. I'll train you personally. And he had been fighting on the independent circuit. He wasn't UFC by any means, but and I'm like, sure, why not? I'll do it. Of course, I was saying that on the air, and then we went to commercial break. It's like, all right, cool, you're gonna fight, right? I'm like, no, man, I was just saying that. It was a fucking radio show. It's like, no, man, you got to do it. I'm like, fuck it, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, again, I really have little jiu-jitsu training. I'm just a wrestler with a little striking. I'm supposed to fight another guy that's more of a stand-up guy, more of a striker. I'm like, fine. He gets hurt. I'm like, all right, well, we got this guy, Chuck O'Neal. You want to fight him? He was like 20 years old. I'm 35. Well, Chuck O'Neal, we're good friends to this day, ends up going on The Ultimate Fighter, goes in the UFC. He was one of Joe Lozon's guys. I wasn't training with Lozon at the time. So I ended up fighting him in the cage. So the first one I did 5 years earlier was in a ring. This one actually no, this was in a ring also. Remember the ring days?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up fighting him, and that was 3 rounds, and everyone's like, watch out for his triangle. He's got a slick triangle, and I'm like, all right, well, whatever. So we beat the shit out of each other for pretty much the whole fight. He catches me in a triangle at the end. He knows I'm fighting for my kids because he donated his purse to me, for my kids and my charity. And he's got me in the triangle, and I wouldn't tap. He couldn't put me to sleep. He didn't have the right angle on it. He's like, come on, Mark, just fucking tap. I already gave you the money. He's talking to me in there, and I'm like, fuck you. You're going to have to put me out,
Yeah.
So I ended up losing a decision to him, and we ended up having a great friendship.
Yeah, of course.
It's that weird,
Yeah, I get it. You compete, and then it brings you together.
Right. So then 4 or 5 years later, same thing. So I ended up becoming something called a father's fight. So every 3-4 years, I would fight just to raise money for my kids and my charity. And I retired at 40. I had my last cage fight at 40. There was an old TV show that used to be on called Inside MMA with Boss Rutan. And he flew out. They flew into Brockton, Mass. They featured me for the show, my kids, my charity. And I ended up winning that fight. I think a guillotine choke.
Nice.
So I've fallen in love with the sport. So then after that, I'm like, I got to start learning jiu-jitsu. So I've been a jiu-jitsu practitioner ever since at Lausanne's, and just earned my brown belt.
Congrats.
Hoping to get my black by the time I'm 60.
Yeah.
And I do it more now for community. It's that locker room talk. It's the bonding. It's the. It's just it's my natural Prozac. Like I take care of terminally sick kids. I'm a criminal investigator. I got a stressful life, but if I don't get into the gym and train at least 3 days a week, it's like, I'd rather deal with the aches and the pains and the joint pains and my knee that needs to be replaced and all the shit that, I look like a 100-year-old man when I'm walking into the store with my wife, and she'll say to me, "You fucking train 3 days a week and you walk like you're 100. I'm like, but someone fucks with you. Wait till that adrenaline kicks in. It's like Popeye eating his fucking spinach.
Yep.
All right?
Yeah.
So that's my natural Prozac is what I call it. It's, and that's the beauty of the sport. It's guys like you or guys like me and everyone that's in there comes from all walks of life. We all got a story. Everyone's got a story that's in there, and that does the sport. They come from something, and that's why I love the sport so much, and I love the people that I train with, male and female, because females are starting to, infiltrate, the sport, which is really cool. So yeah, it's my life, it's my friends, it's pretty much what I think about and live for, outside the kids and the family, the wife.
You bring up such a good point in the sense that it's your Prozac, and I feel like today in our society, medications are being thrown at many different mental health illnesses, such as depression, anxiety. Now, those are real things.
100%.
Depression is real, anxiety is real. I have both of them.
Yeah.
However, I can say that when I lift, when I run, train, whatever I do, I feel so much better. That anxiety and depression tends to go away.
Yeah, because you're releasing all that, whatever the medical term behind it is.
Yeah, you have endorphins going.
Endorphins,
it's just Joe Rogan says it all the time on his podcast.
God.
He's like, "Oh, you got anxiety, you got depression. Go hit a bag,
right?
Go do something, do activity."
Yeah, my stepson is an alcoholic, and I dragged him to the gym. Use that to help straighten him out. People like him, if you can replace one addiction with a bad addiction with a healthy addiction, then, it's a win, right? Train as much as you want. It's better than, drinking and doing drugs, every day. But, for me, coping with with having sick kids and that, that's, my kids were diagnosed 28 years ago. So I've lived the last 28 years with that 500-pound gorilla on my back, having, 2 of my children, with a disease that's going to take their life. So this for me helps kind of it's saved me, and it saves me from a lot of, trouble and stress and, you know, if I don't go, I feel like I'm spinning out of control.
Yeah.
You know, like I got my knee operated on last year from a jiu-jitsu injury, and I couldn't train I probably went back sooner than I should have, but, you know, but I was going batshit fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know, how long can I keep it up? That's the thing. You know, I'm hoping I can, you know, I can go until I'm, you know, God willing, I can go until I'm dead. But you just got to alter your game.
Absolutely.
That's the hard part, you know.
Your twin boys.
Yeah.
What was it like for you finding out that, you know, they're going to be in a wheelchair and that their disease is one day going to take their life?
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of things in my life that are really imprinted in my brain, but that day when the nurse came in. Now, there was a history in my ex-wife's family with this disease, you know, that I didn't really know too much about, and then when they were born and we found out it's a disease that only affects boys. So we had them tested, and I still remember that day when the nurse came into the office. We had the two little babies holding them, and she came in crying and, you know, said, unfortunately, they both have this disease, you know. So, yeah, it devastated me. And, you know, my best friend, Frank, who's also fought on that Valley Tudo card, believe it or not.
The bare knuckle?
Yeah, yeah. We're still great friends to this day. He saw that I was depressed. And I remember one day he came up to my apartment, and he's like, let's go. Get off your fucking ass. Stop sulking and freaking, you know, do something positive. So you know, I kind of give him a lot of respect when it comes to kind of, you know, pushing me away from that. And ever since then, I've pretty much just been a force, you know, as far as, you know, trying to advocate. And especially their disease, like they walked up until they were 12, then they went in wheelchairs around 12, 13 years old. You know, so it was a very progressive muscle wasting, you know, disease. You know, so knowing that what the future for them looked bleak, I kind of squeezed like 80 years of life into a very short period. You know, and it's funny, we just got back from our 6-month checkup. They go like every 6 months to a neurologist, and they're superstars. You know, the doctor was praising how great they look for 29 with this disease. And, you know, and I was saying in that there's medical technology that's changing, and there's some experimental drugs, and they're not dying at 18 or 20 anymore. They're living to, you know, mid-30s into their 40s with you know, not as bad of a quality of life as some of the other population of this disease had. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, doctor, if I had known that they were going to now probably outlive me, I probably wouldn't have spent so much goddamn money on them. You know?
You were trying to suppress it all into a small period of time.
Yeah,
and you're like,
now I'm
fuck.
like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so
That's great news, man.
Yeah, but we joke about it, and they live independently. They have you know, they saw their siblings getting married, and you know, their step siblings, their sister, whatnot, having lives, and you know, I wanted them to not feel like they couldn't have that in their life. So there were kind of a couple of different paths. There's a lot of kids that have diseases, and their parents use them as poster children, you know, to try to, you know, raise money and pull on heartstrings. Like, I never really took that approach with them. Like, I started my own charity, the Wheelchair Strong Foundation, which unfortunately I folded it during COVID, but we used to run grassroots events, comedy shows, and fun things to get them involved. Not let's sit here and cry about what my kids have. Can I take money, you know, from you? So we did things that were interactive and, you know, and fun. And I always wanted them to. I think the best medicine in life is living life. You know, not protecting. If you got a sick kid, you know, yeah, you want to protect them, but you also want them to. You also want them to understand, you know, what it's like to live life, and what it's like to have a disease, and you know, so they wanted to drive. So we went out, got them driving lessons, and they drove a van with a joystick. Yeah. They wanted to play sports, so now they play for the United States of America wheelchair soccer team. They wanted to own a business, and now they build my website. You know, so. you know, so I always want to advocate towards them to kind of live life. They live in an apartment. They have nurses. They have a dog. They have to take care of something and love something, you know, and they have to shop for groceries. They have to pay a fucking light bill. They have to, you know, like they have to manage their care. Like these are things that able-bodied people take for granted in life.
Of course.
You know, that, you know, because we can just, you know, be assholes sometimes, you know, and then, so I think it's helped keep them healthier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they, you know, one of my twins is more into girls than the other one, you know, and he's had a couple of dates, you know, with ambulatory girls, and of course I do backgrounds on them and make sure they're not creeps, you know, so, you know, so it's been a struggle, you know. I had hair prior to them getting diagnosed, you know, but, and, you know, going back to marriages, you know, the exes, you know, their mother having disease is tough, you know, no animosity. It didn't work out because it was the stresses of the disease. We're still friends. My second wife, the lawyer, we're still friends. It was a lot to take on, marrying a guy that has, and yeah, she knew because we were friends what I had in my life, but until you live with it really intimately, you know, so I never judged her. It didn't work. We're still friends. My current wife, she's a nurse. She's a little bit more empathetic and understanding, and you know, and she came to the table with a kid that had some problems. So it was kind of, you know, that I took his problems on and helped him out with his drugs and alcohol, and you know, so you just got to keep plugging along till you find the right person. I'm a sucker for love, so I just didn't want to date forever, you know.
Well, I think it's very important to, you know, not only your twins, but you're not just a present father, you're an active father, and giving, you know, all of your kids the lives that they have today. Yeah. There are so many fathers out there. I see it a lot. So I'm single. Me and my ex-wife, we got divorced 3 years ago. We're great friends.
And you co-parent.
We co-parent.
That's
and
perfect.
We are. So I talk to her every day. We are solid friends.
Yeah.
And, but you know, dating. I have dated girls who have kids, and you know, I'm like, oh, like what's you know, your custody split? She goes, oh no, the father just left. Like I'm 100% of the time. Right. And that's a common denominator down in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And it boggles my mind. Yeah. It boggles my mind. Yeah. And a lot of people that I interview, when like the addiction shows that I do, or even trauma, a lot of them stem from early childhood. Oh yeah. An absent parent. Yeah. Or absent parents. Mm-hmm. So I give you a lot of credit, and I have a lot of respect for what you do.
Yeah, I mean, and people give me a lot of praise and credit, but I'm like, isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Right.
You know, you're a parent. I brought him into this world. It's my job to take care of him, nurture him, and you know, it's hard with my twins, and they get it because I have to be Superman for them, but at the same time, you know, underneath that cape, you know, I'm crying inside. Yeah. You know, I have moments where I lose it, or I break down, or then, you know, or I go train or do whatever to try to, you know, relieve that stress. But yeah, it's tough, you know, being, you know, co-parenting's important. And it's funny, when I first started my detective agency back in the, early 90s, and my daughter Elizabeth was born in 93, so my twins were 95. You know, so I was single dad. I was lugging. I always tease them to this day. I go, do you guys remember back when you were little? You know, Elizabeth, you were like 4 and the twins were 2. That I used to tell you to call me Uncle Mark because chicks loved it. Oh, how sweet! You got your niece and nephews? Oh no, they're like, shut up, Dad. You don't really do that. No, I never did that. I'm kidding, but I used to use it in my business because I always had my kids with me, and being self-employed private investigator, I had a very flexible schedule, and I always answered my phone because I always I didn't want to miss the opportunity to earn money or take on cases. So without even realizing it, when I used to get domestic cases, I'd have women call me, and I could pick up from the get-go that they were hiring me because maybe there was a deadbeat dad involved, or he was lying on his financial statement that he wasn't making as much money and he wasn't, contributing with child support or whatever. And I would always say to the person on the phone, like, I hope you don't mind, but I'm a single dad and I have my kids in the back seat right now. We're going to the park. And they're like, oh, that's so sweet.
A present dad.
Yeah. Reel them in,
Oh, my God.
So I would say it jokingly, but it was actually the truth. It was the truth half the time, because I'd have to yell at the kids in the back, like, guys, quiet down.
Yeah.
Dad's on the phone. There's a potential client. But then the client on the other line would be like, oh, my God, I wish my ex was like that. Matter of fact, that's why I'm calling you. Yeah. So I don't do much of that work anymore, but domestic.
Yeah. How did you get into becoming a private investigator? You started your business, and where is it now? Walk us through that.
Yeah, I what's funny is being adopted, as we covered, I was always a very creative kid growing up. Very artsy, very artistic, talented, drawing, painting, whatever. So when I found my biological mother in my early 20s, I treated it as a case, because like I said, I always knew I was adopted, and my parents always encouraged me to try to find my biological siblings. So I tracked down my biological mother. Come to find out, she was a pretty well-known artist. So that connected that dot. Here I am. All right, geez, I used to win art stuff all the time. I'm very creative. I like drama. I like acting. I like all that stuff. So I was able to kind of, connect the pieces there, that my biological mother was an artist, so that was inherited genetically. So when I was in my early 20s, I was working as a prison guard. Before I became a private eye, I was a prison guard. At 19 years old, I went through Corrections Academy into my early 20s. And after, I'd say after about 3 years, I got a buddy of mine was doing a local modeling pageant in Rhode Island. And he's like, hey, Mark, you want to kind of be my wingman, and just kind of walk the runway with me, grab a couple outfits? I'm like, yeah, I'll fucking grab my Z Cavaricis and...
Okay.
Whatever I was wearing back then, and I go, I'm 5'7", barely. Yeah, I mean, I kind of walk on my toes, and I'm certainly not a fucking model. I don't look like you, I go, but yeah, why not? I'll fucking do it. So we're doing it, and there happen to be a couple of casting directors there. TV casting directors, or crooks, whatever you want to call them. And they were casting for something called the program, where they were looking for models from around the country to live in a mansion out in Hollywood for 3 months and train to be an actor. And, and of course I'm down there and I'm telling my dad, he's this little Italian guy who adopted me. He's like, what are you, a fucking... Yeah. And I use that term loosely. I'm quoting a dead old man.
Of course. It didn't come from Mark, audience. Yeah. It was...
And he goes, why don't you just stick with your job in the prison, all right? You got health benefits, And I'm like, but Dad, these guys like me. And, they offered me to go out to California and live in a mansion, and try to be an actor. And the funny thing is, because we had to audition for it right there after this little runway thing, and my buddy Tracy, this good-looking guy, they didn't like him, and they didn't want him to be part of this program they were casting. So I told these guys, well, look, I'll do it, but you got to take my buddy also, or else I'm not coming. So they said, all right. And at the time, I'm working at the jail. My buddy's just like a waiter or something. We're kids, and it was like $2,500 to go do this. And so I paid for both of us and told my dad, I'm packing my bags, I'm going to Hollywood. I think he was questioning, like, did I adopt the right fucking kid?
Yeah. Of course.
So I ended up, that's it. I took a leave of absence from the prison. I packed my fucking little Honda Prelude up, my 86 Honda Prelude or whatever it was, and I drove out to California. I moved into a mansion up in the Hollywood Hills with 7 guys and 7 girls. I had never, other than my buddy Tracy, I had never met any of them. And we lived with these 2 casting directors, these 2 gay guys. And my father's like, the fuck?
Did they make any moves on you?
Yeah.
They did?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
But then once you denied them, they backed off?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew. And I knew from my prison training, give an inch, they take a fucking mile.
Yeah.
And whatever. You know what? Kudos to you for fucking trying, but I ain't sucking your cock.
Oh, God.
All right? You know, bottom line. Like, I respect you. I respect whatever.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I'm out here to learn how to try to be an actor, but this guy here, you don't take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I got a fiance back home. I'm, you know,
Yeah,
I
of
left
course.
my job. I'm out
Or
here.
you're straight.
Yeah, and I'm straight.
Yeah.
You know, and but there were a lot of guys that were straight that
Tried to get ahead?
tested the, no pun intended.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, tested the waters
To get ahead.
to get ahead.
Did
Yeah.
it help them?
No.
Oh.
No. And I foreshadowed all that. And whatever, you know. So I spent 3-4 months in this mansion.
Nice.
This is before anyone ever thought to put cameras in there. It was like the real world before the real world.
Yeah.
And
90s, right?
91, 90, 90, 91.
Before OJ.
Before OJ. Oh, yeah, because OJ was after I came back to my...
94
Yeah.
in LA is when
Yeah,
he died.
yeah. So it was cool. Like Ellen Travolta was used to come in and teach. John's sister was one of our acting coaches.
Wow.
Like it was legit, but there was certainly some monkey business going on also.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. I sat, you know, and I had that prison training. Would have I not had the wherewithal to be like that if I didn't go through prison academy? I don't know. I just think as a human being, I knew who I was as a person, and
For sure.
and I wasn't weak and vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, and they sniffed that out, and they knew with me they weren't going to get, you know, very far. So,
Yeah.
So when I was out there doing that, I got bored and sick and tired of working little menial jobs, struggling to be an actor. I entered an ad for a private investigator.
To go work for a company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, it wasn't even an ad. I came home to so the program had ended, moved into the Valley, lived in an apartment complex with some buddies, and there was a phone book sitting on the stoop when I got home from delivering pizzas, excuse me, or whatever I was doing. And I'm flipping through, I open it up, Yellow Pages, saw this big half ad of a detective agency, and I'm like, that looks like a cool job. And it was the picture that got me. It wasn't even... I never thought about being a private eye. It was like a cartoon guy with a magnifying glass. I'm like, that looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
So I literally just dialed the number, and a little cross promotion. I think I even mentioned this on Locked In with Ian. And I just called just on a whim, and I said, my name's Mark Chauppetta. I'm from Boston. I need a fucking job. That's exactly how he said it. Guy's like, I like your attitude.
Yeah.
He's like, meet me tomorrow in this parking lot on Sepulveda Boulevard. Like, he could have been a fucking stalker. He could have been the Zodiac killer.
Yeah.
you know, out there. And the rest is history. And he ended up writing the foreword in my book. 20 years later, this guy, Douglas Florence, and I learned how to be a private investigator out there, and eventually gave up the acting, came back to the East Coast. I had taken a leave of absence from the prison. I didn't just sever my ties. And my father was like, came back, my dad's like, all right, you ready to go back to the fucking factory and work? You know, because of prison, you know, state benefits,
Yeah, of course.
that old school Italian mentality. I go, nope, Dad, I'm going to surprise you again. I'm quitting, and I'm going to be a private investigator.
What did he say then?
He was a little shocked.
Yeah.
You know, and he's not with us anymore. On his deathbed, he ended up dying from cancer. I don't know, maybe when I was 30. So 7-8 years later, and that's like the only time, right? It might have been the morphine fucking talking. He told me, that's when he told me he was proud of me for taking a risk in life, because he had always wanted to take risks himself professionally, never did. Mm-hmm. And, I had taken that risk, and I had in my agency, he was starting to become successful at that time. So yeah, that's how I became a private eye. So I've been, been doing it ever since, and made a good living doing it, taken a lot of shit from a lot of people for being out there, not out there personality-wise, but being
physically out there.
Yeah, because PIs are covert. They're secret. You know, you don't really. You're not supposed to know who they are. You call a number and you get a fucking recording that bounces you to someone else, and you get a secret phone call back. You know, I never took that approach from the beginning. I kind of took it that, you know what, if you're going to spend this kind of money, I want you to get to know me as a person, whether it's that woman that's calling me and I tell her I have my kids in the car, or, you know, or an attorney, or whatever the case may be. You know?
Were you ever tested, like, on the job? Like, let's say you're surveilling a guy or something, and he catches on that you're tailing him or whatever.
Yeah.
Were you ever, like, physically tested by anyone?
Like fight-wise?
Yeah, on the street or with a weapon?
I remember once I had a lawyer there called me up, and he's like, Mark, I need you to go find this witness. It's on a homicide case. We need him. And I got a tip that he's going to be, you know, playing hoops with a bunch of friends. I'm like, seriously? Like, it's fucking August. It's 90 degrees out. I'm a white kid, and you're going to fucking send me down to the projects in New Bedford, Mass, and walk up to a basketball court that's, you know, filled with, you know, 10, 15, 20, you know, black dudes playing hoops while I'm walking up. It's like, yep. So I walked up with a file. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for so-and-so. And they circled me like, who the fuck are you? You know, of course, you know, and I'm not a big physically imposing guy, but I think I have a certain aura.
You have the Boss Rudin look. Like, I'll break your neck. Yeah.
So I quickly was able to kind of hone in on who was in the alpha dog in that group. And I looked him in the eyes. Who am I? I go, I'm your best fucking friend. I go, when you get fucking jammed up, I'm the guy that's getting your fucking ass out of jail. He's like, who do you work for? I'm like, well, I work for so-and-so. Oh. Next thing you know, they were helping me, and I got what I needed. You know, of course, I was shitting my pants. You know?
Of course.
You know, I mean, no matter how skilled I am, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get my ass kicked by 10, 15 guys.
Yeah.
You know, so I was able to kind of hone in on that one person, make eye contact. My wife always says it to this day. She's like, why when we go somewhere, people always say hi to you? You know, like, see, shady-looking people. Like, always fucking say hi to me. I go, I think I see him coming from a distance, and I just do that, like, I just zone in on him, and I just look up, and I make eye contact, and for whatever reason, it sends off a signal, and I think their guard drops.
Yep.
And they're like, yo, what's up, bro?
Yep. Yep.
I just have a really good ability to do that.
Intuition.
That could be years of training.
Street smarts.
Yeah, and I'm never a dick. You know, I've never been an asshole out in the street. I treat everyone with respect. I used to get a Christmas card every year from a guy that I helped beat a homicide case. You know, so I've never been that type of a guy. You know, where's it get you in life being an asshole? You know, treat people with respect, treat people with dignity. Some of my greatest friends are people that come from checkered paths.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then I don't think you're genuine.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, we all got a story. We all fucked up somehow. Like, I have friends that spend time in jail or this or that. It doesn't matter, you know. People fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, we're human.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know, man. It's I'm an interesting dude, that's for sure.
What's the craziest case you've been on, or one of that comes to mind?
Craziest case? Oh, Jesus Christ! I've done so much shit, like so much shit. And I talked about this a little bit with Ian, but you know, I spent 10 years running around the world for the Church of Scientology, doing shit for them.
The Church of Scientology?
Yeah, I was one of their investigators for a long time. I'm not one of them, but I was a hired gun, so I used to pull trash all over the world for them.
Interesting.
Dumpster diving and shit like that.
Looking for
intelligence, just shit for a rainy day, stuff for litigation. So I've worked for them. A lot of homicide cases. I probably carry about 10 homicide cases at any given time from the defense side.
And from the defense side, so they're gearing up to go to trial, and you are looking for
just help prepare them for trial. You know? So typically in Massachusetts, we have something called the Indigent Court Cost Fund, and it's like the public defender's office. So if you're indigent and you can't afford to retain your own private attorney, they provide you one. The state will provide you one. So I'm a vendor of the state of Massachusetts, and I'll work on cases for the state of Massachusetts that way, and I bill the state. So yeah, people that get jammed up, and but I've done it all. I started way back when doing a lot of infidelity, doing insurance work, and I kind of phased out of that because infidelity cases nowadays, by the time that they, nowadays, like, you don't even really need an investigator half the time because you can find the shit out on your own. We live in a world of cell phones and computers and, and all that stuff. By the time they come to me, they just want to stick that knife in even more and keep twisting it. So a lot of those people I'll counsel and I'll try to turn them away from me and I'll send them to like a lawyer or something. Yeah. Because I don't want to take their money. Homicide cases, I help prepare, attorneys for trials. Yeah, I've done it all. I do a lot of work for a lot of different cult type organizations. People that defect from cults, doing backgrounds on people and seeing what they're up to. You name it, I've fucking done it. I just investigated Milan Lucic's case from the Boston Bruins, his domestic case. We helped get him a not guilty on his case. Turtleboy, who's pretty famous in the news right now for the Karen Reed case that's national. Turtleboy, I work alongside with Turtleboy on his case, his indictments. So I've done a lot of cool, interesting stuff. Which makes it exciting because it's like having 100 different jobs. When you have 100 different files and 100 different cases, it's not like you're going to the same job every day. You get to kind of dive into different things and manage that. So.
Are you allowed to share what the Turtleboy case is for those who don't know?
Do you know who he is?
I do. Not all the listeners do.
Yeah. He's pretty much the gentleman that exposed a lot of the corruption in the Karen Reed case. He started the whole Free Karen Reed movement, and then due to his, I guess, unique investigative journalistic styles. And the paranoia of the district attorney's office in Norfolk County, they started to, target him and charge him with witness intimidation, and he ended up ultimately getting indicted. That's when I kind of came onto the case. So I'm helping his defense team right now. We're still ongoing in court, and this is nothing that's a secret because it's out there. It's out there in the news.
Of course.
Out there in the media. And,
of course.
I think he's doing what the news media and the news outlets don't do anymore, which is, report. And not sugarcoat. Is he an acquired taste? Yeah, absolutely. But
who isn't?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. 100%. And all the people that in a good handful of the people that are victims of him in the witness intimidation, meaning law enforcement, have been removed from their positions within the state police.
Right.
So what he's been reporting is starting to, come to fruition, and I think he's
fact. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy, crazy movement that's been going on. Like I'm not, people ask me all the time about Karen Reed, and when I think about that, well, that's not really, what I'm involved in. I'm involved in investigating what they're doing to him, in his violation, of his First Amendment right, and that's what it comes down to. They've been trying to suppress. He was getting close to a pulse, during the course of this whole investigation with Karen Reed, and they didn't like that. So they were getting nervous, So yeah, so that's about all I can tell you on that at that point,
What does being a private investigator do to your mental health? And I don't even mean negative. Does it make you grateful that you don't have to deal with some of the bullshit that you come across on a daily basis?
What's it do for my mental health?
To or for your mental health?
Having the job I have has given me the ability to care for my kids, because I can't work for the man. I can't punch a clock. I can't, that's something that I wouldn't have been able to be as actively involved in my kids' life and their care, in their health as I've been if I worked for someone. So having this type of job has been perfect for my lifestyle. I don't use my powers of a private investigator personally. I always tell people that. My wife's like, you probably know this about me or that. I'm like, I don't know shit. Like I don't, you know, you know, sometimes I call myself, I don't know if you know the reference, sometimes I'm like the Barney Fife of private eyes.
I know the reference, yes, I do.
Yeah, I got one little bullet in my pocket, you know, Sheriff Andy, you know. Yeah. But no, you know what? I think I've changed the trend of private investigators. I don't think there's a lot of private eyes like me. I think there's more like me now that are doing media and doing things like that. I remember back in 2007, I was featured in Boston Magazine and The Adventures of Mark Chauppetta, Private Eye. And Boston Magazine's a pretty big magazine, and I got a lot of shit from people within my industry for that. And I basically told them all go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
You know. And then what did people start doing down the road? They started building websites that put their picture on it.
Yeah.
You know, and in kind of taking the approach that, you know, the humanizing approach, because it's one of those subjects that's sensitive when you hire an investigator, and it's supposed to be. You know, I do keep a level of confidentiality. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the Turtleboy stuff because it's out in the public, but there's certain cases I can't talk about because I have to protect, you know, their
integrity of your client.
Yeah, and their privacy, 100%. Like I've had Maury Povich called me. I've had the Inquirer call me.
Maury.
I've had everyone call me about talking about Church of Scientology, but I won't do that.
Right.
Because I signed all these NDAs and I did all this shit. No,
of course.
You know, and they would. I know they have their issues and their troubles and whatnot. But back when I was investigating for them in the 90s or into the early 2000s, I didn't do anything unethical. I never would have.
Yeah.
I just did things that fell under the scope of investigating, and that's how I always looked at it. I didn't judge.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, things have come out since about their organization and how they treat people, and you know, but that didn't bother me. I have a job. I'm not here to judge people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm just here to work and do my job, and I do live life somewhat in that gray area, you know, but don't we all?
Of course.
You know, sometimes I'll dip my toe into the, you know, the dark side, and you know.
Yeah, you got to keep things interesting.
But I quickly reel it back in. But yeah, you know, and it's weird. I enjoy it, and I was talking earlier about, you know, my life's kind of come full circle. Like I went out to L.A. to be an actor in the early '90s, and I became a private investigator. You know, I come back. I ended up, you know, around 2004 or 5, reality television started to take off, and I started to get a lot of calls. And, you know, to do reality TV. So I did a lot of reality pilots and, you know, different sizzle reels and shows. Nothing that ever really stuck or made it. But I think it helped that creative drive that I always had in me. And then I gave it up again. And then now lately I'm back at it again. Now I've got the blessing of my wife. Now I'm going back to acting school, and I'm doing some big part. So now I'm trying the next 20 years. I want to try to, you know, slow my business down. I want to try to
do some acting.
Yeah. That's and producing.
Yeah.
You know, where I have a couple of projects right now that I'm the associate producer on. A couple of my intellectual property cases that I can't really mention, but cases that I've worked on that we're developing, and then also trying to get back into the acting because I can play a cop, I can play a dad, I can play an asshole. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I have a type. You know what I mean? Whatever. I don't mind being fucking typecasted. You know?
Yeah, of course.
Like if I may be a private eye. I've never been a law enforcement officer other than a CO. But you know, someone wants me to play a cop, then
so be it.
So yeah. So I have an acting coach now. I've been training with him.
That's great.
I went out to L.A., did a master acting class, did a reel. I have an agent, and you know, I'm gonna try to give it a go, at least for the last 20 years of my life before I take the dirt nap.
The dirt nap. You got time with medicine. I think you can make it over 100.
Yeah, man.
But do you want to make it over 100? You know, when does it start to become a headache to live?
You know what? Getting older is scary. You know, like I sustained a jiu-jitsu injury last year. I had a big black belt that's like twice my size put what they call a body lock on me and squeezed my fucking guts. And I started shitting blood and having problems. And
how old was he?
He's like 20 years younger than me.
Bro, relax.
Yes, I know. If I didn't have respect for my gym, I probably would have fucking clubbed him upside the back of the head. So whatever, each his own. I don't know if there was malicious intent there or not, but either way, it injured my insides, and then I'm getting CAT scans, I'm getting tests, and then all of a sudden, I find out they find a tumor on my pancreas, and so I'm fucking freaking out. And they're like, well, we need an MRI now. That's going to be like 2 weeks. So it's that whole...
Sitting in your head for 2 weeks.
You fucking... Yeah, right, yeah.
I'm going to die.
Yeah. The only time... Actually, I won't tell that story. All right, bye. It has to do with Tijuana.
You can tell me outside.
Yeah, tell you outside.
Whatever.
So it's freak, because, I'm older. And so I'm like, all right, maybe this body lock was a blessing in disguise.
That's what I was
because I wouldn't have went and gotten a fucking CAT scan, and I wouldn't have seen the tumor on my pancreas if I didn't get injured doing jiu-jitsu. And if I had pancreatic cancer, the only way you can survive that shit is if you catch it early, and most 99.9% of people don't catch that shit early. You can name a plethora of fucking people that have died, Patrick Swayze onward, that from pancreatic cancer, but it ended up being benign, so, and it's like, damn, I gotta start to really look at my health and how I eat and the things that I, put within my body. And, it's tough. When you're young, you feel like you're invincible. And then, the first thing that comes to my mind is if anything ever happens to me, then my son, my twins, my family, they rely on me, and it fucks with your head, as a parent, and then it's like, I'm calling my friends. I'm like, all right, if I die, you need to get, my wife works these hours. You got to get in and clear my computer out. Take all my black fucking ops operate. I think every fucking dude needs a buddy that's gonna go
my cell phone, fucking burn it.
Burn it, the computer, trash it, get rid of all the porn. No.
Oh, my God.
No, it's...
I hear you, man. But I hear you. Look, getting old and
It's... what's hard is that, you're going to be 40. Yeah. So, that's a big milestone. It's that I tend to associate with younger people. I do jiu-jitsu. They're all in their 20s and 30s. Yeah. There's not many in their 50s. So I'm always telling stories, and I'm always making references that nobody fucking gets. Now I'm the old man, and I'm the brunt of the old man jokes when I, but it's kind of fun. Yeah. I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But then they also call me for fatherly advice.
Right.
Which I certainly, I welcome.
Yeah.
But I think also Hollywood now is filled with executives that are my age, that look back on the 80s and miss the 80s. They're constantly pumping, life was so great in the 80s, or life was so great in the 90s, and you see it on TikTok and Instagram, and, so you're constantly getting reminded of what life was like back then when it was simpler and things were easier, and you didn't have the internet, you didn't have fucking information being thrown at your face. But in the same breath, we were kids, It's so hard being a kid growing up nowadays. It really, there's just so much shit that's being thrown at them. And
overstimulated.
You think?
It's insane.
I didn't have that growing up. I had cartoons and 4 or 5 channels on
no
TV.
Phone.
And no phone, and out running around playing sports and staying out till the streetlights came on and whatever the shit that everyone...
There's so much more anxiety
I'm a
now.
fucking walking meme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're 40, you're almost 40, so you can kind of remember what it was like back when life was a little simpler. Mm-hmm. So...
In the early 90s, when I was like 6, 7, 8, 9, my mom, just go ahead, guys, go out and come back at 6 for dinner.
Right? It's right. Do whatever. Parents didn't know. We were latchkey kids.
Yeah.
They didn't know where we were. Mm-hmm. Just come home, and they would yell out in the neighborhood, and you'd find your way back. But I don't know. There was something to be said for that. I think it trained me, and it's it's scary. I'm not old, but I'm getting older. That's the you think I have 2 grandkids now. It's like seriously. It's like, the fuck?
Your daughter, the 31-year-old, has two kids?
No, it's actually my stepson and his wife, but they're mine. You know,
it's amazing.
Yeah, they're mine.
It's amazing.
They're my blood. And they're not my blood, but they're my blood. And,
Yeah.
and you know, and I know my stepson, his father's not in his life. I have two stepsons, and their father's not in their life. And then my daughter-in-law, her father's not in his life, so it's me. So I'm grumpa, you know. I guess 'cause I'm fucking grumpy. I don't know. and if anyone understands how to love someone, you know, you don't have to be blood to love someone. You know, you don't have to. You know, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's who wipes your ass and wipes the tears off your eyes and who cleans the boogers out of your nose.
Yeah.
You know, and gives your advice or whatever the case may be. You know, and I don't know. I try to be a good person to make up for all my sins.
Yeah.
It balances out if I'm walking through the fucking pearly gate someday, you know?
Hell.
Yeah. My uncle was a priest and he passed away, and I remember when I was getting married to my second wife, I'm like, Uncle Vic, you know, you want to do our ceremony? He's like, get your ass back to church and I will.
Ooh. I love it.
Yeah.
What was really quick? What was one of the craziest things you've seen when you were a correctional officer?
Correctional officer.
3 years you were a correctional officer, right?
Yeah, I went through academy in 1989.
Uh-huh.
I was involved in like 2 prison breaks.
What prison?
In Bridgewater, Mass. So it was a big break in 1989, a bunch of sexual deviants out of the treatment center. And I was a cadet. I was going through academy when that happened. And, you know, these dangerous sexual criminals escaped, and they sent us out in the woods looking for them.
How many escaped?
Like, I think it was like 5 or 6. One fell to his death out the window. Yeah, he didn't make it out of there. The others were like homing pigeons. I think they ended up finding them in like their fucking mother's or grandmother's closets. You know, so that was pretty crazy. I think, you know, seeing, you know, some sexual activity going on and, you know, things of that nature. I think I alluded to earlier, and we used to make our rounds out at the farm, because there was a farm at this property, you know, seeing some funky-ass shit going on with, you know, sheep's asses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That was really happening?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Oh.
I think they...
Isn't that how syphilis started?
Yeah, I think so.
No.
I don't know from experience, but I think they say like a lamb's a lamb's ass is like
a woman.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Bah.
Wow, bad.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
you know, but it was fun because I was literally 19 years old when I got out of Corrections Academy. So I'm working in a prison with, you know, there are multiple institutions within this facility in Bridgewater. They had the criminally insane, the Bridgewater State Hospital. They had the treatment center, which was sexual deviants. They had an addiction center, which were the drug addicts, and they were easy to deal with once they went through their DTs, and they were people, you know, normal people. And then they had a medium security prison. So I kind of bounced around within all of them. The nicest ones were the sexual deviants to deal with as inmates also, but you also knew that they were child molesters.
They're going to get crushed in there.
Well,
they're scumbags.
Well, they're in the treatment center. They were all there for the same crime, so they weren't in like a regular jail population.
Oh, okay, amongst themselves.
Yeah, so it wasn't as bad, but they were easier to deal with because they weren't. There was no temptation.
Right.
You know, they're there and they're in this. Woo! Drinks.
Energy drink
giving
me,
jacking me up. Yeah, they were the easiest to deal with, but then you had to try to block out what they were actually in there for.
Yeah.
The drug addict, the addiction center, they weren't bad people to deal with. But again, you know, like I'm in the jails all the time now because, you know, my clients are defendants, they're criminals. I'm always visiting my clients in jail. So, you know, so I think that helped prep me for later in life when I became a criminal investigator. But I was, at the time, I'm 19, I'm working in a jail, I'm working with hardened criminals, I'm working with drug addicts, I'm working with pedophiles, you know, and I was a kid myself, I was a fucking baby myself.
At 19, yeah.
19,
20.
dealing with 40, 50-year-old men, and I learned in academy, always be, and this is how I raise my kids, be fair but firm, I was always fair, but I was firm, there were rules, but, like I said, you give an inch, they take a mile. So.
Yep.
So that was tough. It was a tough job to go into as a young kid.
Yeah.
Working
a young age.
Working in a prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I was able to buy like a cool stereo. I lived in my parents' basement at the time. It was a great job. I was probably making $36,000 a year in 1989. I was fucking rich.
Yeah.
Until I told my dad I was going out to Hollywood to be an actor, and he thought I was a yeah. So
well, could be worse. Could be worse.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure he's proud of me in heaven, as is my mom. Both my parents that adopted me both passed the cancer. Unfortunately, it's so it was my mom died when she was 55. I was 22. I'm 55 now. It's like I thought she was old when she died. I'm like, she lived a good life.
Yeah.
When I was 22.
Little did you know.
Now I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm 55 years old. I better not be croaking anytime soon. But we're different now. Like, I have a picture of my old man, like, mowing the lawn or something, and, he's got, like, a gut, cigarette in his hand. And I'm looking at the back of it. He's, like, 41 years old. I'm like, what the fuck? Why did guys look so fucking old back then?
I know.
Yeah. Maybe he needed to do jiu-jitsu or something. It wasn't even popular back then. I don't think the Gracies even brought it to America.
No, it didn't exist.
Back in those days, But yeah, man, life's crazy. You can hopefully just leave a legacy and you leave good lessons to your kids and your grandkids and you're remembered. And people someday say, remember that guy Mark there from class.
He was right the whole fucking time.
Yeah, right? I don't know, man. It is what it is, I just try to be a good dude. I remember in 2004 I ran for state rep, and I was ran for office in Massachusetts, and my opponent's like, I lost, and she's like, yeah, I just want to thank you for keeping this clean. Because she was paranoid that I was going to fucking try to dig up dirt on her. And I'm like, I go, why would I do that? I mean, it's like we're just running based on the policies and the facts. I'm not looking here to try to make you look bad,
destroy you.
Yeah, why would we do that? We're just people. Unfortunately, in our political environment of today's day, that's not how it is. There's no respect or any decency or try to treat people like you want to be treated. Yeah. I guess in life, but what else you got for me? Is that it?
No, I thanks for coming on, man.
No, man,
I
this
really
is great.
appreciate
it's my
it.
Pleasure.
I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you just sharing. These are the struggles of life.
Yeah.
And I feel like we take certain things for granted, especially being an active father. I'm a father myself.
Yeah.
And I gave up a job. I was working at Google in New York City. I moved down to Florida 3 years ago, and then
you still in Florida? Or?
Still in Florida.
You just come up here just to shoot, or
shoot my show?
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then I have a studio in Florida as well.
Right. Okay.
But Google wanted me to move back to New York City. Now her mom lives down in West Palm, Florida. I'm not a part-time dad. I'm a dad first, and then I will work at Google.
Right.
So sorry, Google. I'm not moving to New York. That's just how it goes, and I believe that God will take care of the rest.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it.
Yeah, and you know what? You made a choice, for your little girl, and the one bit of advice. Like I'll let people call me before we wrap up. Like they'll be going through a divorce or whatever, and they have kids, and they get that tunnel vision. They think because they're getting divorced, they're not going to be able to be involved in their kids' lives. And I'm like, I go, well, first of all, it's not good to stay in an unhealthy relationship for your child going forward. All right, you may be you may think being under the same roof is the way it should be, but if you're unhappy, your child is going to sense that. Your child's going to be much better off if you co-parent and you live in separate places, and then maybe there's someone else that comes into your life that's going to love them, as much as you. But I always tell people, just be involved. Like, go to every fucking school, appointment, or every dentist appointment, or, if you have a son, take them for their haircut, or, go to your soccer games with your kids. Like, just don't think because you can only see your kids every other weekend that you have to be an every other weekend parent. Be an everyday parent. You may only have them over maybe on a Wednesday night every other weekend or something because maybe at that age it's conducive because of school or whatever. But be involved every day. We have cell phones, FaceTime, text, stop by, say hello.
It's funny. My daughter, I had her for like a week straight. This was probably like a year and a half ago, and we were doing 2-2-3. Yeah, and it was an abnormal amount of time that she was with me. So then when she went with her mom, she really missed me.
Right.
And Krista is my ex-wife. She sent me a picture of my daughter, Lumi, sitting at the door just crying for me.
Oh, it's cute.
Like, and she lives 15 minutes away. I'm like, that's her right now? Yeah. She's like, yeah. I was like, make sure she doesn't leave the door. And I had a key to the house.
That's awesome.
I fucking showed up in 15 minutes,
cool.
and I just opened the door, and I was like, hey. And she was like, oh,
Daddy.
Lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but shit like that, man. It's important.
When I split up with my first wife, I had my 3 kids. I didn't have my 4th yet. I built a house, I don't know, maybe 400 yards down the street. There was a lot. And I'm like, and they were building a house there. And I'm like, I'm buying it. So even though I wasn't at mommy's house every day, whenever they drove
right there.
They drove right past my house every day.
Yep,
or I was right there. So just be active, be involved, and that's what I can tell every parent.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you got to do. Your kids need it. And we live in a world that's just so much. It's normal to be separated and to be divorced. And when I was growing up, there was like, oh.
Broken family.
Yeah, there's that one kid that's got, what's wrong with them? They're I remember, so I don't mean to drag this on, but I remember my sister, my older sister, Mary. I was married at the time. We had the 3 little kids. My oldest sister, Mary, 6 years older. She didn't have any kids, never married. And she's like, yeah, I'm dating this guy, Brian, I go, all right, tell me about him. She's like, well, he's divorced with 3 kids. I'm like, you're going to date that loser? He's divorced with 3 kids? Well, come to find out. A couple of years later, I ended up getting divorced with 3 kids.
Yep.
He's still married to my sister 30-something years later. He's a great guy. But,
never judge.
I learned my fucking lesson because I became that guy.
That was me.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Mark, thanks so much, brother.
You got it.
I appreciate it.